Henry, watch your step there. My voice barely left my throat before I heard it. That sickening crack. Not wood, not stone, but the sound of a human body hitting something with force. My grandson's boot had slipped on the loose gravel near the cliff edge, exactly where I'd seen them tampering with the railing just an hour before. I lunged forward, my 68-year-old legs protesting, my hand outstretched. For a fraction of a second, our fingers touched. His eyes went wide, not with fear, but with recognition. Henry knew. In that split second before gravity took him, my grandson knew this wasn't an accident. Then came the second crack. This one was me hitting the ground as someone shoved me hard from behind. My shoulder struck the rocky earth, and white-hot pain exploded through my chest. Through my blurred vision, I saw him. Marcus, my grandson's business partner, standing there with Rachel, Henry's girlfriend of 3 years, both wearing expressions that weren't quite shocked enough. "Oh my God!" Rachel's scream was theatrical, too theatrical. "Mr. Peterson! Henry! Someone help!" I tried to move, tried to push myself up, but my left arm wouldn't respond. Broken collarbone? Maybe worse? Through the ringing in my ears, I heard Henry's groan from below. Not dead. Not yet. The cliff wasn't sheer. About 40 feet of rocky slope before it dropped another 30 to the ravine floor. He'd caught on something. "Call 911, I managed to rasp out. "No signal up here," Marcus said, pulling out his phone with exaggerated concern. "I'll have to drive down to the main road. Rachel, you stay with Mr. Peterson." He met his wife's eyes. Something passed between them, a look I'd seen before in Kandahar when local contractors tried to sell us faulty equipment they knew would fail. The look of people who'd planned something and were watching it unfold exactly as expected. "I'll go with you," Rachel said quickly. "Your truck is bigger." "No," I forced the word out. "Stay, both of you." They'd planned this for when we'd be alone. The two of them could claim Henry slipped. I tried to save him and fell too. But with me conscious and watching, they couldn't finish what they'd started. "5 minutes, Marcus said. "I'll be back with help." He took off running down the trail. Rachel stayed beside me, her face a mask of concern that didn't reach her eyes. Below us, Henry groaned again. Still alive. "We should try to get to him," I said, testing her. "You're injured. We should wait for professionals." "You could climb down. You're young, fit." "And risk falling myself? Mr. Peterson, we have to be smart about this." Smart. They didn't know who they were dealing with. They saw a retired old man who'd spent the last decade restoring vintage cars and teaching Henry about engines. They saw someone who didn't ask questions when Rachel insisted on being named beneficiary on Henry's new life insurance policy, who didn't make a fuss when the policy was raised to $2 million 6 months ago. They didn't know that before I restored cars, I'd restored order in places where order had broken down completely. They didn't know that the quiet old man who taught their victim mechanical skills had once been Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Peterson, United States Intelligence. And they definitely didn't know about James. "Rachel," I said, my voice steadier now. I'd been adjusting to the pain, compartmentalizing like I'd been trained to do. "How long have you and Marcus been planning this?" Her head snapped toward me. "Excuse me?" "The railing," I saw you two up here this morning. You loosened those bolts, and Marcus pushed me. I felt his hand. You're confused. You hit your head. No, I didn't. Broke my collarbone and maybe some ribs, but my head is fine. I paused. The life insurance policy that names you as beneficiary even though you and Henry aren't married. The fact that you insisted on this hiking trip despite Henry mentioning 3 times that he's afraid of heights. Her face had gone carefully blank. You're in shock. I know Marcus isn't going for help. He's going to sit in his truck for 20 minutes, then come back and claim he couldn't get through. By then, Henry will have lost his grip and fallen, and I'll have gone into shock and maybe won't remember clearly. That's the plan, isn't it? She stood up slowly. Her hand moved to her pocket. Looking for your phone to call Marcus? I should check on Henry. Don't. I put command into my voice, the tone I'd used with subordinates who were about to make fatal mistakes. Don't move. Just stand there. To my satisfaction, she froze. Old habits die hard. People who aren't used to real authority can be paralyzed by it when applied correctly. From my position on the ground, I reached into my jacket pocket with my right hand. The movement sent fire through my chest, but I bit back the groan. My fingers closed around my phone. No service, but it didn't matter. I navigated to my contacts, found the name I needed, and hit a button I'd hoped I'd never need to hit. The phone emitted a single sharp tone. Rachel watched nervously. What was that? Insurance. My own insurance policy. There's no signal. There doesn't need to be. The emergency beacon in my phone, a modification James had insisted on, didn't need cell service. It used satellite. It told James exactly where I was and that I needed help immediately. James Sullivan. Major James Sullivan when I'd last served with him, though he'd made it to colonel before retirement. Now he ran a private security consulting firm, which was a polite way of saying he fixed problems for people who had the money to pay and the sense to ask. We'd served 3 tours together, saved each other's lives more than once. Brothers, though not by blood. Who did you call? Rachel's voice had panic now. A friend. He'll be here soon. I opened my eyes and looked at her, really looked at her. Young, maybe 26, pretty in that carefully maintained way. Henry had been so proud when he'd started dating her. My grandson really loved you, you know that? After his parents died, I raised him from age 12. I taught him everything. How to be a good man, how to trust people, how to love openly. My voice cracked. And you used that. You saw a good man and decided to kill him for insurance money. Rachel! Henry's voice came from below, weak. Rachel, help me! Don't move, I shouted down. Henry, stay exactly where you are. Mr. P, are you hurt? I'm fine. Just stay put. We've called for help, Henry, Rachel said loudly. It's coming. I watched her calculating. How long until Marcus came back? How long could she keep up this act? Tell me something. Was any of it real? Did you ever actually care about him? She looked down at me, and the mask slipped. What I saw underneath wasn't evil. It was something worse. Indifference. He's boring, she said, quietly. He talks about camshafts in his plans for a custom shop. Marcus has vision. We're going to move to California, start a real business. With the $2 million from Henry's life insurance? With capital, an initial investment. That's all it is. That's my grandson's life. He won't feel anything. The fall will be quick. Footsteps on the trail. Marcus returning. He took in the scene and nodded approvingly. No signal anywhere. We're going to have to drive down to the ranger station, about 40 minutes round trip. And by the time you get back, Marcus's expression was sympathetic. Hopefully your grandson can hold on. These kinds of accidents, sometimes people go into shock, lose their grip. You pushed me, I said flatly. Mr. Peterson, you're confused. You must have lost your balance. I was 5 feet from the edge. You pushed me, and you loosened the railing. I saw you both up here this morning. I came early to scout the trail, watched you through binoculars from the ridge. Marcus and Rachel exchanged glances. The pretense was falling away. Actually, Marcus said slowly, it's going to take longer than 40 minutes. Could be hours. Hours, Rachel agreed. Anything could happen in hours. They were going to climb down and push Henry off themselves. Last chance, I said. Walk away now and I'll forget this happened. Marcus laughed. You just accused us of attempted murder? You think we're walking away? I think you have no idea who you're dealing with. You're an old man with a broken shoulder, lying on the ground in the middle of nowhere. His face darkened. He took a step toward me, fists clenching. Rachel put a hand on his arm. We need to check on Henry first. They moved toward the cliff edge. Henry! I shouted. They're coming to kill you! Don't let them near you! Marcus spun around. Shut up. He crossed back to me and kicked me in the ribs. The world went white with pain. When my vision cleared, he was leaning over me. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to lie here quietly while we check on Henry. Tragically, he's going to lose his grip, and you'll be too injured to stop us or remember what happened. Traumatic memory loss, very common. They were going to do it right in front of me. Make me watch. And I couldn't stop them physically. But I'd pressed the beacon. James knew. But James was hours away. I still had one more thing. Before we'd left this morning, I'd done something I'd hoped would be unnecessary. James had taught me paranoia years ago. Always have a backup plan, and a backup to the backup. I'd driven into town, gone to the sheriff's office, asked to speak to Deputy Miller, a young guy I'd known since high school. I told him I was worried about the hiking trip, just an old man's paranoia, but would he mind checking on us around noon if he didn't hear from me? Deputy Miller had been understanding. Sure, Mr. Peterson, I'll swing by, no problem. It was 11:47 a.m. now. In 13 minutes, Deputy Miller would start heading this way. But 13 minutes was too long. My phone had one more trick, a short-range emergency radio transmitter, powerful enough to reach any emergency responders within a few miles. I pulled the phone from my pocket, navigated to the app, hit the button. A piercing alarm erupted from my phone, an emergency distress signal broadcasting on all emergency channels. Anyone with a police radio within range would hear it, including Deputy Miller. Marcus whirled around. What the hell is that? Emergency beacon, I said through bloody teeth, broadcasting our exact GPS coordinates. Every cop, every park ranger, every emergency responder in 50 miles just got an alert. His face went pale. Shut it off! Can't. Once activated, it runs until emergency services acknowledge receipt. They're coming now. Rachel was pulling at Marcus's arm. We need to go, right now. We can't just, yes, we can. We haven't done anything yet, but if we're still here when cops arrive. The sound of an engine, distant but growing closer. Marcus grabbed Rachel's hand. Come on. They ran. I heard their boots on the trail, heard their truck start up and peel out. Gone. I let my head fall back against the rock. Every breath was agony. But Henry was alive. The truck sound grew louder, coming from the other direction. Within 3 minutes, Deputy Miller's patrol truck came into view, emergency lights flashing. He jumped out, radio in hand. "Mr. Peterson, I got your distress signal. What happened?" "My grandson, over the cliff, still alive. Hurry!" Miller was already calling it in. More help coming. Fire and rescue, medical helicopter. He grabbed a rope from his truck, started rappelling down. 2 minutes later, "I've got him! He's alive! Legs trapped, but he's conscious!" I closed my eyes. My job was done. Henry was safe. 3 hours later, I was in the hospital. Broken collarbone, 4 broken ribs, possible punctured lung. Henry was 2 rooms down. Broken leg, fractured ankle, cuts and bruises, but alive, conscious, safe. Deputy Miller had taken my statement. I'd told him everything. He'd put out a bolo on Marcus and Rachel. They'd been picked up at the state border, trying to flee to Idaho. At 8 p.m., James walked in. 52 years old, built like he could still pass ranger school, gray in his close-cropped hair. "Tommy," he said, "you pressed the button." "Yeah." "Your grandson?" "Alive, thanks to Deputy Miller." James nodded. "I had a helicopter in the air 40 minutes after you hit the beacon. By the time we landed, local cops had it secured." He leaned forward. "Tell me what happened." I did. All of it. "You knew," James said when I finished. "Before you went up there, you knew they might try something." "I suspected. When you've spent as many years as I have reading people, looking for deception, you develop instincts. Rachel was too interested in Henry's finances. Marcus was around too much. And that insurance policy? No way a 28-year-old mechanic needs $2 million in coverage with his girlfriend as the beneficiary when they're not even married. So you set a trap." "I set up safety nets. There's a difference. I hoped I was wrong, but if I wasn't, I wanted to make sure someone would come looking." James was quiet for a moment. "You want them taken care of?" I knew what he meant. His company did other things, for the right price, for the right reasons. "No," I said. "This one goes through the system. Deputy Miller has their confession on his body cam. They'll go to prison." "You sure? They tried to kill your grandson. They tried to kill you." "I'm sure. They're stupid and cruel, but not professionals. They'll crack in interrogation. The system will handle them." James nodded. "You're a better man than me." "No, just an old man who wants his grandson to see justice done the right way, to see that the world isn't all darkness, that there are rules, and they matter." A nurse stuck her head in. "Mr. Peterson, your grandson is asking for you." 10 minutes later, I was sitting next to Henry's bed. His leg was in a cast, his face pale, scratched and bruised, but his eyes were clear. "Mr. P," he said, voice cracking, "Rachel and Marcus, I can't believe she was going to kill me for insurance money, like I was just a thing." "I'm sorry, Henry." "Don't be. You saved my life. If you hadn't been suspicious, if you hadn't set up that backup plan." He looked at me. "How did you know?" "I didn't know. I suspected. And I learned a long time ago to trust my instincts and plan for worst-case scenarios." "From the Army?" "Yeah." "Mr. P, when I was on that cliff, I heard them talking about killing me, but then suddenly they ran away. What happened?" I activated an emergency beacon. Deputy Miller was already on his way. Marcus and Rachel realized they were out of time. "You planned for all of this?" "I planned for the possibility." He was quiet for a long moment. "Who are you? I mean, I know you're my grandfather, but there's more, isn't there? The emergency beacon, the backup plans, the way you stayed calm. That's not normal." I'd known this conversation would come eventually. Henry was owed the truth. Before I retired and started restoring cars, I was in Army intelligence. I did things I can't talk about in places you've heard of on the news. I learned how to read people, how to spot threats, how to plan for contingencies. When I got out and your parents died, I tried to leave all that behind. I wanted to be just a normal grandfather. But you couldn't leave it all behind? No. Some skills stick with you. Some instincts never go away. Henry processed this, fitting pieces together. That time those guys tried to rob the shop last year, you didn't just scare them off. I came back and they were on the ground, crying, begging to leave. You did something to them. They pulled a gun. I disarmed them. That's all. Both of them? 2 guys with guns? And you, at 68, disarmed both? I'm 68, not dead, and they were amateurs. I gripped his hand. Henry, I need you to understand something. I taught you to be a good man, to trust people, to see the best in them. I don't regret that. That's who I want you to be. But you also need to learn when to be cautious, not paranoid, but aware. There are bad people in the world. How do I do that without becoming paranoid like you? I smiled despite the pain. I'm not paranoid. I'm prepared. There's a difference. Prepared is understanding that threats exist and having plans in place while still living your life normally. He squeezed my hand. Thank you for being prepared. Thank you for saving my life. You're welcome. But this isn't over. There's going to be a trial. You'll have to testify. Face Rachel in court. I can do it. I know you can, and I'll be there with you every step. 6 months later, I stood in the back of the courtroom as the jury foreman read the verdict. Marcus Turner and Rachel Westbrook, guilty on all counts: attempted murder, insurance fraud, conspiracy. Between them, they were looking at 40 to 60 years. Henry sat in the front row, his leg healed, his face impassive. He'd testified for 2 days, calmly detailing everything. When Rachel's defense attorney tried to imply he'd been complicit, he shut him down with facts and timelines that left no room for doubt. My boy had learned. He'd learned to see clearly, to think strategically, to trust but verify. He'd kept the good heart I'd cultivated in him, but added steel to it. Exactly what I'd hoped for. After the sentencing, we walked out together. James was waiting by his car. "Buy you boys a drink?" he asked. "Yeah, I think we've earned it." At the bar, James raised his glass. "To preparation." "To survival," Henry added. "To family," I finished. We drank. Later, after James had left, Henry asked the question I'd been expecting. "Are you going to teach me?" "Teach you what?" "The other stuff. The intelligence work, the threat assessment, the self-defense, all of it." "Why would you want to learn that?" "Because twice now, I've needed it. Once when those guys tried to rob the shop, once when Rachel tried to kill me. I don't want there to be a third time when I'm not prepared." He paused. "And because it's part of you. You taught me engines and metalwork, but there's this whole other part of you I never knew about. I want to know all of you. I want to learn everything you know." I studied my grandson. 29 now. Matured by trauma but not broken. Still fundamentally good, but no longer naively trusting. The exact balance I'd hoped to strike. "Okay," I said, "but we do it my way. You don't become paranoid, you don't become cynical. You learn the skills, but you keep the heart. Deal?" "Deal." "Then we start tomorrow. James has agreed to help. We'll teach you properly. But Henry, promise me something." "What?" "Use these skills to protect, not to punish. Use them to save people, not to hurt them. Use them to make the world safer, not more dangerous. Can you promise me that?" He held out his hand. We shook. "I promise, Mr. P." 2 years later, I got a call. James, asking if I could recommend someone for a security consulting position, entry level, but with room to grow. I gave him Henry's number. 6 months after that, Henry came by the shop. He was wearing tactical gear, looked more fit than I'd ever seen him. He'd just gotten back from his first assignment, providing security for a corporate executive in a dangerous area. How was it? Intense, but good. I spotted 2 potential threats before they developed, redirected the client both times. No incidents. That's the job. Prevention over reaction. Yeah. He paused. "Mr. P, I've been thinking about what happened with Rachel and Marcus, about how you prepared, how you saved us both, and I realized something." "What's that?" "You didn't just save my life that day on the cliff. You saved it years before, by teaching me to be the kind of person worth saving, by showing me what it means to be a good man who's also a strong man." I felt my throat tighten. "You turned out pretty damn good, kid." "I had a good teacher," he smiled. "So, when are you going to let me teach you about modern engines, all this electric vehicle stuff you're so suspicious of?" "I'm not suspicious. I'm skeptical. There's a difference." "Sounds like paranoia to me." "Sounds like preparation." We both laughed. Outside, the Montana sunset painted the mountains gold and purple. The shop was quiet, peaceful. But underneath that peace, I knew, was steel. Preparation. The knowledge that if threats came again, we'd be ready. Not paranoid. Prepared. Marcus Turner and Rachel Westbrook are currently serving 45 and 40-year sentences, respectively, for attempted murder and insurance fraud. Henry Peterson now works as a security consultant, specializing in threat assessment and executive protection. Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Peterson, retired, continues to restore vintage cars in Montana. And he still has James Sullivan on speed dial. Just in case.